Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed we do. Guys, it has happened. Nikki Haley has officially entered the race for 2024. Get excited. We've got all the highlights. She's already embarrassing herself with Hannity last night, so we'll show you all of that. Also, President Biden's supposed to make some remarks about the UFO situation and the Chinese spy balloon situation. This comes as they are also warning, you know, guys, we just may not be able to get any of that debris. We may never really know what happened. Who's to say, ultimately. We also have an update from Ohio, actually a number of updates from Ohio, as what appears to be a potential cover-up unfolding. Residents are told to drink bottled water, but assured that the air quality is perfectly fine. Meanwhile, Norfolk Southern, of course, that's the owner of that train that ultimately derailed because of lax safety provisions. They bailed on a public town hall they were supposed to attend last night. People are absolutely outraged, as they should be. So we have all of the details there. Also, some updates on Ukraine. Some indication maybe the Biden administration is thinking that they need to engage in some diplomacy, at least here down the road. We'll see about that. And also Republican support for continuing to support Ukraine with the level of aid that we have has been dropping. And we've got a great moment for you from Andrea Mitchell and John Bolton that you gotta check out. There's a lot of layers there.
Yeah, you can't miss this one.
All right, but let's start with the woman herself, Nikki Haley, officially launching her campaign yesterday, delivering her launch speech, heavy on bio, heavy on some sort of like veiled references, maybe to Trump, definitely to Biden. Let's take a listen.
And take it from me, the first minority female governor in history, America is not a racist country. We're ready to move past the stale ideas and faded names of the past. And we are more than ready for a new generation to lead us into the future. In the America I see, the permanent politician will finally retire. We'll have term limits for Congress. And mandatory mental competency tests for politicians over 75 years old.
Later that evening, she went on with Sean Hannity over at Fox News and went ahead and proved the sort of central problem of her candidacy when she was totally unable to answer how she differed on policy from former President Trump. Take a listen.
What specific policy areas would you say part with Donald Trump?
What I am saying is I don't kick sideways. I'm kicking forward. Joe Biden is the president. He's the one I'm running against. And what I'm saying is you don't have to be 80 years old to be president. We don't need to have these same people going back again. We need something new. We need a new generation of fighters. We need people that understand where the American, your average American, is coming from. And we shouldn't be afraid to fight for that. And that's what I'm willing to do. I'm not going to kick sideways. I don't have time for that. That's not my focus. I'm kicking forward. It's all about Joe Biden.
She's kicking
Why is she
forward,
always
Saagar.
kicking? Why is everything kicking?
With the heels.
With the heels.
Kicking.
It's like a feet thing. Like why are we always talking about Nikki Haley's feet?
Well,
I don't understand.
It got worse from there because actually Hannity asked her again. He went back and he's like, okay, that's fine, kicking sideways or whatever, but President Trump is the one in the race. These things are all about contrast. What is a policy difference that you have? And she just went back to that same, like, I'm not kicking sideways, I'm kicking forward, which means not. I mean, it was a very, like...
It's like the Marco Rubio moment with Chris Christie.
Yes.
When he says it over and over
It's
again.
like, oh, you memorized this one line and you literally have nothing else to say about it. And listen, if you can't say Trump's name, if you can't lay out how you're different from him, don't waste your time. And that's to you, Nikki Haley, that's to all of these people. If you can't directly challenge this guy and lay out some reason other than your age that you are different from him and that you have a different policy vision, I don't know why you're bothering.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the funny thing is they don't want to mention Trump. Trump is fine mentioning them.
Oh,
I mean, immediately he's taunting her, being like, she said she would never run against me. I guess maybe she needs to answer why she broke her promise. We have this, let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Immediately after she makes her announcement, Here you have that 2021, that moment where she actually outright comes out and says, yeah, this is why I'm not going to vote against Trump, or why I'm against Trump. We need to acknowledge he let us down. He went down a path that he shouldn't have, and he shouldn't have followed him. We shouldn't have listened to him. We can't let that happen
This was
ever again.
right after January 6th.
Then she goes to Mar-a-Lago and apologizes.
Like a month later.
Right. And then she says, I won't ever run against him as long as President Trump is in the race. So make up your mind, lady. Which is it? Like, you know, and just back to the point, like Trump is willing to go after her immediately. Put this next one up there. Immediately after her candidacy is announced, he comes out with a scathing actual policy disagreements with Nikki Haley, Krystal.
This is interesting. Let me read you some of the things that he lays out here, because the line of attack, several of them are quite fascinating. First of all, he pulled this quote from her where she said, "The reason I ran for office is because of Hillary Clinton." And so his headline is, Hillary Clinton is an inspiration to Nikki Haley. But the very next thing he leads with is Haley supported Paul Ryan's plan for entitlement reform, threatening Medicare and Social Security. He also, the next thing on his list is, instead of finding a peaceful solution to the Ukraine-Russia war, Haley has supported sending more American fighter planes to fuel the war. He goes on to talk about her, differences on immigration, some transgender bathroom bill, and also, takes credit for bringing Otto Warmbier home. His mother was introducing Haley there. And then the last one is Haley flip-flops on the 2024 race. And this is her saying, I'm not going to run against Trump, and then ultimately getting in the race. But Saagar, I thought this one, two of them I thought were really interesting. One is him going after her for saying she'd cut Medicare and Social Security, which is something that he signaled he's going to go after DeSantis on as well. And almost sort of makes the case that President Biden is making about Republicans too, that there are quite a lot of Republicans who have been interested in cutting Social Security and Medicare and continue to be interested in cutting Social Security and Medicare. And then the other piece that we've highlighted before is Trump clearly sees a lane for himself in the Republican primary, pushing back on the direction of Ukraine aid and support, pushing more for a diplomatic solution. Now, listen, guys, you never know what this guy is actually going to do, so it's not like I take his words all that seriously, but he clearly sees a political opportunity here, and we're going to have some polling later in the show on Ukraine that I think backs him up in that regard.
Oh, absolutely, it backs him up. And beyond that, actually, let's say 50% of Republicans say that they don't want to continue to support Ukraine. Well, then all those people are going to support Trump because every other Republican does want to continue to support Ukraine. It's actually a very smart and savvy move. I thought that the attack was perfect, actually, because he led with she's disloyal because she used to support Hillary. Then he hits her on probably the most salient policy difference around entitlement reform, Medicare, Social Security, then Ukraine, then immigrate. It's like a greatest hits of all the things that matter most to the Republican base. I mean, look, she never had a chance in hell. The opportunity that she had to actually contrast herself with Trump just doesn't exist. And increasingly, I don't believe that any of this kind of Kennedy-esque attempt, new frontier, new generation, it just doesn't meet the moment as much as I would like for it to. I really do. But
I don't
politically,
want it to. It's got to have something more to it than just like, I'm younger than you.
Absolutely. But I'm saying, okay, you take the new frontier, you're like, it was not only new generation, but it was like new generation policy ideas. Didn't necessarily work out all that well. But what I'm saying is that was at least aspirational of getting away from like the closet of the 1950s and the stagnation of all of that. I'm doing some of my monologue on this and age and why to the extent that it matters and doesn't. But the point with this is that she's not offering anything new. It's like, okay, you're 51 years old, but you are a complete creature of the Washington establishment, which is what Trump is hitting her on. And that's what the fundamental disconnect is.
I mean, the thing with Nikki Haley is, listen, guys, y'all know I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, but the few things that he was right about, she's wrong on.
Right.
Like, from a policy perspective, there is just no doubt she is way worse than Trump. And rather than being actually a new generation or some sort of evolution from Trump, she's actually a regression to the Paul Ryan politics that dominated DC before Trump. And so that's what you're getting at is, it'd be one thing if it was like, okay, here's a new generation, these are fresh ideas, and here's a whole new approach and way of thinking about America and the problems. No, but it's not that. It's literally a throwback. The people who were upset in the Republican Party when Trump came into office and had at least some different ideas about trade and China and some other things, they want control back, and they think she might be a vessel to be able to bring the party back to where it was during the like Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan era ultimately. So that's why the critique on Social Security and Medicare is a really fascinating one because this is becoming a very clear and salient dividing line within the Republican Party. And my God, I mean, literally ever since Social Security was passed, conservatives have been trying to roll it back. And of course, we've seen various efforts. I mean, George W. Bush trying to privatize. We saw Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney. And Democrats have been complicit in this at many times as well. I mean, during the Obama-Biden administration, they actually accepted a deal that also would have cut Social Security. The Tea Party said it didn't go far enough, so it didn't ultimately happen. But it's a very new dynamic where you have all of the Democrats effectively saying, no, 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 we don't want to cut Social Security, and quite a number of Republicans saying the same thing as well at this point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And just, overall, I think that it just highlights the biggest problem for all of these Republicans. Put this next one on the screen from the New York Times. It just talks about all of these prospective candidates. They're trying to topple Trump, and they can barely utter his name. She doesn't say his name one time at all. What's the point? The pastor that is introducing her, he doesn't say anything about Trump. It's all just this vague nonsense.
Yeah.
We got to move on. We got to have a new generation. And, she didn't pick 75 for no reason. You know why? Trump is 76 years old as of today. So that was but they're all subtle digs. People don't know. If I hadn't just told you Trump is 76, I don't think people know what his actual age is.
The audience mostly thought she was talking about Joe Biden.
Yeah, exactly.
Reporter Benji Sarlin made this point, which I thought was intelligent, which is, he was recalling back when Marco Rubio was trying out a very similar line of new generation, et cetera, and taking these shots that, he was hoping people would interpret as being about Donald Trump, but they didn't interpret them that way. Like, you have to come out and say it, right? And if you aren't willing to come out and say it and really take him head on and lay out something, I just don't know what you think you're going to ultimately accomplish here. And it's not just Nikki Haley. I mean, listen, Ron DeSantis isn't in the race yet, but he also, in his rebuttals to the attacks on Trump, he also does a similar dance of just saying, well, look at the scoreboard, but not directly taking him on ultimately. And you're not, maybe he's going to change once he actually gets in the race. Maybe he'll take a more direct approach. It's got to be, it's entirely necessary if you're ultimately going to succeed here. So the fact that none of these people can directly confront him while Trump is happy to take them on. He also, his initial comments about Nikki getting into the race, he was like, the more the merrier.
Yeah, more the merrier. He doesn't see her as a threat. And immediately he was like, she's polling at 1%. She's got a long way to go.
Right.
Something.
Well,
and he's right. He should taunt her.
And not only that, but he's also correct in the analysis that for him, the more that get into the race, it definitely is better for him.
Yeah.
So he's happy to see Nikki and Tim Scott and Chris Sununu and John Bolton and all these people lining up, not to mention, Ron DeSantis and Mike Pence lining up to jump into the race. Speaking of being vague and potentially running for president, former Vice President Mike Pence laying out some also sort of vague, buzzwordy consultant speak case for himself recently. Take a listen to this.
What we need in this country is a return to common sense and common values, and a return to the common good that the overwhelming majority of the American people support. And look, this is a big country. It's a beautifully diverse population. I'm a conservative, but I'm not in a bad mood about it. Some of my best friends are just as fiercely liberal as me. When you push back from the table, there are issues that bring us together.
This is so vague.
Boilerplate, boring, common sense, common good. This actually, for people who are in the know, the whole common good conservatism was like a real Paul Ryan push back to 2000 era's Bush conservatism. And it's like, look, guys, how many times are we going to learn the same lesson? This stuff doesn't work. Like, what the base and even the country wants has nothing to do with any of this think tank vague language. What are you going to do for me? What are you actually running on? And with Trump, to the extent that he's ever done worst in politics, it's always whenever he departs away from that. So he is right back to his strong suit, attacking Republicans on Medicare and Social Security. Got a very old Republican base who are hardcore with Trump on this, and they are not with the donor class. Also, Actually, I think this is the biggest problem for Haley, DeSantis, and others. The Republican establishment wants them to win specifically because they're not Trump, and the people who back them, whether they like it or not, are exactly those who Trump vanquished in the 2016 primary.
Yeah.
Paul Singer was one of those people, vehemently, staunchly anti-Trump all the way up until he won the nomination. Ken Griffin and many of the other billionaires that have come out and that are backing Ron DeSantis are similar. I saw yesterday Bill Ackman actually endorse Vivek Ramaswamy. He was like, I think Vivek is going to win.
Tell people who that is.
Vivek is a guy who wrote the Woke Inc. book. We've had him here on the show. He's been on the realignment as well if you want to go listen to those interviews. He apparently is thinking about running for president. But Bill Ackman is also, he's one of those where you might remember him for trying to crash the market during COVID and making a killing whenever he was shorting it. That's what I remember him for. Private equity guy, one of those Mitt Romney type Republicans. The more posturing that these people make, they're the ones who the voters hate. So like anytime you're backing up behind them, you're actually having the opposite intended effect. It's just one of those where all their money is going to come and all of their support is going to come from fundamentally a more establishment coalition. The only one with a chance possibly of doing that is Ron DeSantis. And he still has a very, very tough line to walk in all of that. And the only chance he really has is if he's the only one in the race. And what you're seeing from the Tim Scotts and the Nikki Haleys and now Mike Pence's and all those is the anti-Trump vote is going to be totally split. And Trump is going to use that completely to his advantage. It's the narcissism of these Republican politicians and of the establishment which will ultimately bring them down in this.
Yes, indeed. Here's the latest, just so you have a sense, primary tracker from Morning Consult. I always have to say, the polls have been all over the map. So, I mean, always take polling with a grain of salt. Take it with like a lot of skepticism because there are continuing polls that show Ron DeSantis in a stronger position and some that even show him beating Donald Trump right now. But here's Morning Consult has Trump at 47, Ron DeSantis at 31, Mike Pence at 7, Nikki Haley down at 3%, along with Liz Cheney and Ted Cruz. So, and when you look at Morning Consult, they always do these trackers that are like every week they check in, and it's been pretty stable in terms of their polling. It's been basically everybody's been clustered around these same percentages the entirety of the time that they have been polling. So that's where things stand. I just thought it was remarkable in particular. I mean, we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but I also got to say, like, the identity politics from Nikki Haley, leaning into the bio and being a brown girl in Bamberg, South Carolina or whatever. And she even then, right after she laid out one of those lines, she immediately was like, I don't believe in identity politics. Like, girl, what are you doing right now?
Yeah, exactly. Why can't you just be a good governor from South Carolina? And here, look, once again, you can lean into your bio. I'm also proud of being a child of Indian immigrants. I think that's fine, but the trying to like cast it as part of this and then also rejecting like some of the tenets of leftism, which you're clearly utilizing in your own campaign and will show you some of her merch. That is what's cringe to me. Like either do it or don't.
Right.
But you are trying to have it both ways. And broadly, part of the reason why I hate it is there's nothing underneath that. It's like, okay, what else? I remember all this happened during the Kamala thing in the Indian community. People were like, we got to support Kamala because Indian. I'm like, yeah, what does she think though? Like, what does she actually believe? Right. In India, Trump is more popular than Kamala. You know why? Because they don't care about her background.
The other thing with Nikki Haley doing this is like, I mean, I think she has an awareness that this only gets her so far with the Republican base. But she has no policy plan that's different or that she wants to lean into. So even the new generation stuff is really identity based. I mean, it's just literally about what year you were born in. So her whole pitch is based in her bio rather than any sort of specific policy plan. And listen, I just don't think that it sells with the Republican base, with the Democratic base, with the American people. You can ask Kamala Harris how well it worked out for her in the Democratic primary.
Right, exactly.
Ultimately.
Yeah, and I think that's the way it should be.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.